welcome to our channel! This is Bobs. Kaya mo pa ba? O ano guys, kaya niyo pa ba? Ako kasi, kayang-kaya ko. So, ibig sabihin kung kaya ko, kaya nating lahat. Okay, so, let's proceed to our topic. So, what comes in your mind when you hear the word liberalism? It's freedom, right? Freedom from what? Single? No, it's not about being single. It's all about being free from someone who hurts you a lot. Charot, ganon. Okay, so to formally define what is liberalism. Okay, liberalism came from a Latin word liber. Liber, hindi yung atay, liber, as in L-I-B-E-R. So, liber means freedom. Free from slavery and free from heartaches. Charot! So, ayun. Liberalism, on another side, derived from a word liberal arts. So, dun siya nag-derive sa liberal arts. Hindi na natin kailangan pa i-define kung ano ibig sabihin ng liberal arts kasi alam nyo na yun. And okay, so to formally define what is liberalism. Okay, liberalism is a political philosophy or worldview which is based on founded ideas of liberty and equality. Right. So these are the example of freedom. This is the example of. So these are the examples of liberalism. Number one is the freedom of speech. We have the freedom of religion. We have the free markets. We have the civil rights. We have the democratic societies. We have the secular government. We have the gender equality. And we have the international cooperation. Okay. So those are the examples and ideas of liberalism. Liberty aims to disperse power, to foster diversity, to nurture creativity. Okay, so they can further be divided based on their adherence to social liberalism or classical liberalism. So, mamaya natin pag-usapan yung social at saka classical liberalism. Now, although lahat or all liberal parties divided is parang sinishare nila yung basic similarities, meron pa din silang pagkakaiba kahit sinabi nating lahat sila liberalism. Lahat sila merong type ng liberalism. Pero hindi isa ang ibig sabihin nun. Marami siyang variation. Okay, so mamaya na natin yung i-tackle. So for now, we are tasked to define the liberalism first. Okay, so liberalism is includes supporting civil rights and democratic institutions. Liberalism, on the other hand, includes a broader spectrum of political philosophies that consider individual liberty to be the most important goal and emphasize rights and equality or opportunity. Okay, so although most liberals would claim that mas malaki yung role ng government dito sa pagkakaroon ng liberalism, nasasabihin natin ang government is necessary to protect rights, different forms of liberalism, hindi pwedeng iaasa natin sa government para ma-achieve natin yung liberalism. Although mas dominant ang power ng tao dito pagdating sa liberalism, we have to execute fairness pa rin, and we have to be considerate, ganon. Parang siya lang, parang ikaw lang, kailangan maging considerate sa lahat ng bagay. Charot. Ayun. So ayun, sinasabi po na ang liberalism is they are however includes extensive freedom. So extensive freedom, meron din dito application ng rule of law. Meron din ditong limitation of the power of the governments. Ito nga sinasabi ko kanina. Kailangan din dito is transparent and democratic system of government. So liberalism believes that society should be organized in accordance with certain unchangeable and inviolable human rights. Okay, especially the rights of liberty, property, and without you, parang alala ko siya, nasa Bill of Rights siya eh. Ayun. So, it also holds that the tradition do not carry an inherent value, that social practices ought to be continuously adjusted for the greater benefit of humanity, and that there should be no foundational assumptions. Okay, there is no foundational assumptions over the aspects of the government. Yes, Papa. Oh my God. Na-stress na yung bangs ko sa report namin. Charot! So, ayun. Let's proceed to the history of liberalism. Okay. The modern ideology of liberalism can be tracked to the humanism, which challenged the authority of the established in Renaissance Europe, and more particularly to the 17th and 18th century British and French Enlightenment thinkers and the movement towards self-government in colonial America. So, nagets nyo? English, diba? Ang hirap intindihin ng English. Charot. So, ayun. Marami tayong history ng history of liberalism. So, ayun nga. Sabi nga dito, it can be tracked back to the humanism which challenged the authority of established church and Renaissance Europe, and more particularly the 17th and 18th century. So, meron dito, meron ditong mga proponents ng liberalism. Una dito is si John Locke. Okay? Okay. I'm just going to see the John Locke's proposal. Okay, during the 1689, John Locke was born. And he claims that there are two. There are two fundamental liberal ideas. So, number one is the economic liberty. Number two is the intellectual liberty. So, i-define nyo. Hindi ko alam eh. Charot. So, ayun, yung fundamental liberal ideas. So, ito yung it includes freedom of yung economic liberty. Yung economic liberty is right ng isang tao to have a fair use of property. Meanwhile, yung pong intellectual property is includes a feeling of conscience. Consensya. Meron ba kayo nun? Wala kasi ako eh. So, he has also a natural rights theory. This is the natural rights. For Locke, being essentially life, liberty, and property was the distant forerunner of the modern conception. So, sinabi niya, yun yung pinakang forerunner ng liberalism. Yung intellectual at saka economic liberty. Okay? Sabi din niya, he saw the right to property as more important than the right to participate in the government and public decision making. And he did not endorse excuse me. He did not endorse democracy, fearing that giving power to the people would erode the sanctity of private property. So, hindi siya nag-focus sa democracy. Nag-focus siya sa liberty and property ng isang tao. Nevertheless, the idea of natural rights naman is played a key role in providing the ideological justification for the American and French revolutions and in the further development of liberalism. So, ayan yung pinropose ni John Locke. Ewan ko. Yun yung pagkakaintindi ko eh. Okay, so the next proponent is ano ba to? Ang hirap i-pronounce. Baron de Montesquieu. Basta yun na yun, siya yun, si Baron. Baron advocates laws restraining even monarchs than a novel concept, rather than accepting as the natural mere rule of force and tradition. And French Sayocrats, oh my god, ang hirap mag-pronounce kapag he believes that the wealth of nations was derived solely from value of land, agriculture, or land development. So, ito naman si Baron Montessori is, nag-rely siya, nag-depend siya sa land. Ito, so makalupa ito He established the ano ba yan? Kasi ang hirap i-pronounce. The laissez-faire. So, spell L-A-I-S-S-E-Z. F-A-I-R-E. I-pronounce nyo na lang, guys. So, yung ibig sabihin nung idea yun is, economic is an injunction against government interference with trade. Yon. So, let's proceed naman kay Rousseau. Okay, he was also instrumental along with Locke. Bakit beshi kaya sila? Yun. In the development of Bisaya ka dahil. In the development of key liberals concept. Social contract yung kanyang idea. So, what is social contract? Ito yung idea ng yung people kailangang may dumaan na tricycle. So, ito yung idea, social contract. Ang idea nito is people need or should give up their rights to government. Bakit? Para daw ma-receive ng tao yung social order. So, ano yung paano susuko mo yung sarili mo? Susuko mo yung sarili mo sa taong hindi ka naman mahal. Charot. So, ayun, he asserted that, Rousseau asserted that each person should know their interest best. So, dapat alam mo yung interest mo. And he also believed that the man is born free. But that education was sufficient to restrain him within society. So, ayun, kailangan daw ng education para ma-restrain tayo sa society. And idea that rocked the monarchical society of his age. Another is, he also asserted, again, in contravention of established political practice, that a nation could have an organic national will in a capacity for a self-determination which would allow states to exist without being chained to pre-existing social orders such as aristocracy. So, yon. Next slide. Sinasabi dito, a late French Enlightenment, Voltaire. Who is Voltaire? Argued on intellectual property for the establishment of a constitutional monarchy in France. Proceed naman po tayo sa contributing group ng ideas ng liberalism. So, we have Scottish Enlightenment. So, yung dalawang proponent dito na popularly known is sila David Hume at saka si Adam Smith. Ayun. So, ang kay Hume is nag-focus siya sa important contribution ng liberalism is yung assertion that yung magbe-base ang society sa fundamental rules ng human behavior. So, nakadepende ang liberalism sa ugali ng tao. Yun. So, kung ano yung dominant na ugali ng tao sa isang society, yun yung magiging resulta kung anong type ng society magkakaroon. Parang ganun. Tapos, yun namang yung idea nito ni Hume is naka-impluwensya kay Kant. Kaya nagkaroon siya ng imperative jury, something like that. So, ayun, si Adam Smith naman, parang in-expound niya lang. And he expounded the theory that, etong sabi, individuals could structure both moral, and economic life without direction from the state, and the nations would be strongest when their citizens were free to follow their own initiative. So, ayun, yung kung kay David Hume, nag-focus lang siya sa human behavior. Ito namang si Adam Smith is pinagsama niya yung moral behavior at saka yung economic life ng isang society at ng isang tao na hindi nakokontrol ng estado. So, the study of his own advantage naturally or rather necessarily leads him to prefer that employment. Yun. So, ang nalilimutan ko palagi yung name niya, kay Adam Smith is nag-focus siya na parang sinasabi niya na mas malaki yung advantage ng society kapag nag-leads ito sa employment. So, tama naman yun. Kailangan talaga every citizen is kailangan may work, may trabaho para maging malaki yung contribution niya sa pagtaas ng economy ng bansa. Okay. Ayun nga lang, huwag natin problemahin yung wages dito sa Philippines kasi alam naman natin. Okay, so in his influential The Wealth of Nations of 1776, sinasabi niya that market under certain conditions would naturally regulate itself and would produce more than the heavily restricted market that were the norm at that time. And he agreed with Hume that capital, not gold, is the wealth of a nation. Yun that capital, not gold, is the wealth of a nation. Yun yung motto nilang dalawa. So, ayun. Sana all may motto. Alam ko lang, time is gold eh. Charot. So, ito, last na to about sa history ng liberalism. Let's talk about the French Revolution. So, this is during 1775 to 1783. So, ang description po dito sa PowerPoint namin is, it's more drastic and less compromising, although in its first few years, in its first few years, the revolution was very much guided by liberal ideal. Wait, ibig sabihin nun. So, ayun, parang sinasabi dito that stability was to prove more difficult than the similar American transition. So, and later, under the leadership of Maximilien Robespierre, siya yung dating leader sa Amerika as a French Revolution. And the Jacobins, powers is greatly centralized and most aspects of due process were dispensed with, resulting in the reign of terror. Nevertheless, the French Revolution would go further than the American Revolution in establishing liberal ideas with such policies as universal male suffrage, national citizenship, and far-reaching. So dito po sa French Enlightenment, nagkaroon po tayo ng declaration, the rights of man and citizen. Yun, na-declare. So, meron nga po diyang proponent na si John Stuart Mill. In-expand niya naman yung liberal ideas in the middle 19th century, grounding them in the instrumental and the pragmatic, particularly in his own liberty. So, itong si Mill is meron siyang sariling liberty. He propounded a utilitarian justification of liberalism. So, in which the moral worth ng economy is determined solely by its contribution to overall utility in maximizing happiness. Ayun, utilitarianism. Ang ibig sabihin kasi ng utilitarianism is achieving the most, the highest level of happiness. Parang gano'n. Di ba sa philosophy? Ewan ko, di ako sure, pero yun yung pagkakaalam ko. It's more on pleasure and happiness among all people. So, yun yung kay Mill. Pero wala dito siya sa wala siya dito sa PowerPoint. So, let's proceed to types of liberalism. So, number one, we have the classical liberalism. So, dito sa PowerPoint namin, nakalagay, freedom is freedom from coercion. So, what is coercion ba? Coercion is being free or hindi ka nako-control ng anyone using by their force or threats. So, nagagawa mo isang bagay na hindi ka hinakot lang, hindi ka pinilit. Yun, it's a free will. Yun, so, ayun. Sabi dito, sa pagkakaintindi ko rin, classical liberalism is holds the only freedom, the only real freedom, which is free from coercion. Ayun na nga, yung coercion po is free from force or threat. And the state is intervention in the economy is a coercive power that restricts the economy, freedom of individuals, and so should be avoided as far as possible. So, ayun, pinaprevent dito yung makontrol ng isang bansa, ng isang government, yung kagustuhan ng mga tao na gagamitin nila ng dahas or ng force. So, ayun, nag-favor siya dun sa kanina, yung mahirap i-pronounce, yung laissez-faire theory. Kaya medyo, yun, economic policy, yun. So, pag sabi economic policy, minimal economic intervention and taxation. So, by the state beyond what is necessary to maintain individual liberty, peace, security, and property rights. And opposes the welfare state. Ayun, the provision of welfare services by the state and the assumption by the state of primary responsibility for the welfare of its citizen. So, ayun, simple lang siya. Simple lang classical liberalism, free from coercion. And next, we have the social liberalism. Social liberalism, nakalagay dito sa PowerPoint namin na promoting the freedom of the citizen. So, ano kaya yung pinagkaiba niya? Yun. Social Social liberalism argues that the government must take an active role in promoting the freedom of citizens, and that real freedom can only exist when citizens are healthy. So, paano yun? Kapag may sakit ka, ibig sabihin, hindi effective yung government mo. So, yung parang kasalanan ng government kung nagkasakit ka. Charot, hindi siguro wait lang. Ayun, so sabi dito, kailangan daw, mag-exist daw ang real freedom kapag ang mga mamamayan ay healthy, educated, and free from direct poverty. Wait lang, parang ang hirap naman nun. Parang, kasalanan ng gobyerno na mahirap ka? Kasalanan ng gobyerno na hindi ka nakapag-aral? Parang ako pa yung mali? Ako pa yung may kasansyaran? Hindi, kasi sinasabi dito na freedom can be ensured when government guarantee the right to an education. So, ayun naman pala. Kailangan i-guarantee nila yung education, yung health, at ayun, yung mga facilities, yung healthcare, and living wage. Ewan ko lang sa living wage. Hindi ko sure kung nag-guarantee nila yun. So, meron naman, as of now naman, meron tayo dito sa Philippines na meron tayong free education. Kahit mahirap ka, mayaman ka, wala kang pera, pwede ka pumasok sa free school. Kasi, guarantee siya ng government. Meron din tayong free healthcare, which is, ewan ko, kung okay ba yung service nila. Kasi, alam naman natin sa panahon ngayon, ayan na nga, nagbibitiw na nga si Duterte because of too much corruption daw and we do something like that. Ayun. Dito, going back, in addition to other responsibilities such as laws against discrimination in housing and employment, yan, meron din po tayo dito sa social liberalism, meron tayong mga batas, kanya-kanyang batas in restricted or in particular areas. Kagaya ng laws against discrimination in housing and government, laws against pollution of environment, we have the provision of welfare, meron din tayong progressive taxation system. Hindi ko sure kung meron tayong progressive taxation system kasi alam nyo naman, yung white sand, wala na wash out na. Yung ginastos ba doon, kumusta naman, ilang billion ilang tao din yung makakakain doon in pandemic times, diba? So, ayun, hindi ko alam kung progressive ba. Kung pag-uusapan natin is bansang Philippines. Hindi naman tayo masyadong nega, but it's the reality. Okay. Let us now proceed to economic liberalism. So, according to our PowerPoint, theory of economics in classical liberalism. Yun yung definition dito. Okay, so, eto po is a theory in classical liberalism. So, under siya ng classical liberalism na nag-develop during the Enlightenment. Particularly, ito pala yung kay Adam Smith, yung economic liberalism. So, ang ina-advocate naman dito is, minimal lang yung interference ng gobyerno sa economy. So, ayun. Libertarianism, neoliberalism, and some school of conservatism, particularly liberal conservatism, are often referred to as economic liberalism. So, ayun. Etong economic liberalism is, yun nga, minimal lang yung interference. Hindi masyadong nakikialam yung gobyerno sa economy. Parang ganon. When it comes to liberalism, what types of liberalism is it? When it comes to neoliberalism, ito naman yung nagre-refer siya sa program na nire-reduce. What's reduce? Oh my God, ang dami ko ng vocabulary na invento dito. So, ayun, neoliberalism refers to a program in which nire-reduce daw yung trade barriers and internal market restrictions. So, while using government, ito, ginagamit naman dito yung power ng government to reinforce opening of foreign markets. So, ito naman, in contrast naman siya sa economic liberalism kasi minimal lang interference ng gobyerno doon. Meanwhile, itong neoliberalism is ginagamit yung power ng government para ma-enforce yung restriction, matanggal o maalis yung restriction sa mga foreign markets. In some ways naman, a modern attempt nito is nag-revert siya sa classical liberalism. Yan. So, American liberalism. Ito, we have American liberalism. It is largely a combination of social liberalism, social progressivism, and mixed economy philosophy. It is distinguished from classical liberalism, which also claim. So, itong American liberalism naman is, kiniklaim niya yung freedom as the primary goal. Insistence upon the inclusion of positive rights, education, healthcare, and other services and goods believed to be required for human development and self-actualization, and in a broader definition of equality. Ayun po. So, nagfo-focus naman itong American liberalism sa healthcare and other services and goods na kailangan, iyon yung requirements ng isang human para magkaroon ng human development and self-actualization. Okay, next is the national liberalism. Okay, from the word itself, national. It is a variant of liberalism commonly found in several European countries in the 19th and 20th century. Which countries has a combination of nationalism? So, ito, ang policy dito is mainly derived from economic liberalism. So, ayun din, parang halos kaparehas lang din siya ng economic liberalism. Kakonti yung interference ng gobyerno sa economy. So, ayun. So, usually matatagpuan mo siya sa mga European countries during the 19th and 20th century. Okay, next naman po is the ordoliberalism. Okay, so ito yung nakalagay sa PowerPoint namin. Ordoliberalism. It emphasized the need for state to ensure that the free market, okay, free market, in the middle 20th century, na-develop ito na Liberalism sa Germany. So, ini-emphasize naman ito is the need for the state to ensure the free market produces results close to its theoretical potential. Yan. So, ito, pinapromote ito yung free market para ma-sustain natin yung needs ng isang society. Last, hindi pa pala siya last, akala ko last na. So, the Paleo-Liberalism. It is a term naman that has at least few distinct, true, largely ambiguous meanings, including liberalism. And ito is very socialist sila. And yon, sabi nga dito, parang kaparehas din siya ng siyang extreme liberalism na sobrang free, na sobrang nag-i-aim sila sa freedom, na sobrang opposed naman sila sa neoliberalism. Ayun. Dito kasi sa ordo liberalism, merong mga restrictions talaga. Merong mga restrictions sa market, ganun. Kailangan may limitations and kailangan control siya ng government. Unlike sa neo, tinatanggal or binabawasan yung interference ng government. Ayun. So, eto naman po sa cultural liberalism. It is a liberal view of society that stresses the freedom of individuals from cultural norms. So, ayun na po, culture, from the word itself, culture. Ayun, liberal view of society. So, walang pakalamanan.
Welcome to our channel. I am Bien Harold Polborosa, and today, let's talk about liberalism in the United States. Liberalism in the United States is a broad political philosophy centered on what many see as the unalienable rights of individual. When we say unalienable rights, it refers to your rights that cannot be given away or taken away from you. Since 1930s, liberalism in the United States has been called modern liberalism, a dominant version of liberalism that combines ideas of civil liberty and equality with support for justice and mixed economy, a political philosophy exemplified by Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. Franklin Roosevelt was a 32nd president of the United States, and Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal was a series of programs, public work projects, and financial reforms, and also regulations. And later on, Lyndon Johnson's Great Society. Lyndon Johnson was the 36th president of the United States, and the Lyndon Johnson's Great Society is a form of social liberalism whose accomplishments includes the Work Progress Administration and Security Act 1935, Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Because of the accomplishments of the late presidents Franklin Roosevelt and Lyndon Johnson, the United States has now a fundamental liberal ideals. Fundamental liberal ideals such as freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion for all belief system, and separation of church and the state right to due process. And also in the modern liberalism, as a dominant version in the US, the issues include same-sex marriage, reproductive and other women rights, voting rights for all adult citizens, civil rights, environmental justice, and government protection of freedom from want. And also in national social services such as equal education opportunities, access to health care, transportation, and infrastructure to promote general welfare for all citizens. And equality under the law is widely accepted as a common foundation across the spectrum of liberal thought. Some American liberals call themselves classical liberals, which means they believe a free economy with minimal government interferences, and others call themselves fiscal conservatives or libertarians. It is a political and economic philosophy, advocates low taxes, reduced government spending, and minimal government debt. These people believes in fundamental liberal ideals but disagree with modern liberal thought, holding that economic freedom is more important than equality. And according to Ian Adams, a Canadian author, all US parties is liberal and always have been. That's all for today, and thank you.
So, ayun po. Yun po yung report namin, rather. And I hope po sana may naintindihan kayo kahit hirap mag-pronounce ng mga word dito. Ayun, sobrang hirap i-pronounce pag mga rusud, mga ganyang word. Hirap. So, yun lang po yung masasabi ko. Thank you for listening, and I hope may natutunan kayo kahit konti. Thank you so much! Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.